Okay. So this section will be over Skype. What could possibly go wrong? Chaoyang Lu is joining us from Shanghai, USTC. Unfortunately, he couldn't get, his visa didn't arrive on time. He'll be talking about quantum supremacy, or as it's called in the States, alt quantum. And the title of his talk is Towards Demonstrating Quantum Supremacy by Creating Perfect Single Photon Sources.
Okay, thank you, John. And first, I would like to thank the committee for giving me this great opportunity, and also for allowing me to present my talk by remote video conference. And also many thanks to the organizers for taking a lot of efforts to setting up this very nice video conference, which is the best quality I have used in a video conference. So today I will talk about our recent experimental research on optical quantum computation, or to use another fancy title, fitting our efforts on building quantum boson-sampling machines and try to race with classical computers. So first, I would like to thank my collaborators, including Professor Jianwei Pan. He is the director of the Quantum Research Center here in Shanghai, and also in Hefei of our university. And also, I would like to thank Professor Sven Hoffling from the University of Würzburg in Germany for providing us high-quality quantum dot samples. And also, well, sorry, I forgot to mention that Professor Jianwei Pan is also the chief scientist of the Quantum Science Experiment Satellite Project, and also the 2,000 kilometer Beijing to Shanghai practical quantum communication network. And also we have a group of students who have been working very hard and with great patience over the years. So first I will go through some basics on optical quantum information. A lot of you have already very familiar. So photons can be very conveniently used to encode qubit. For example, we can use horizontal as 0 and vertical as 1. And we can prepare arbitrary superposition state. And also can use off-the-shelf high precision wave plate, for example, half wave plate and quarter wave plate, to do arbitrary rotation. And we can perform projective measurement using, for example, polarizing beam splitters that transmit horizontal and reflect vertical, so we can know which the final state is. And naturally, because it's a fast flying qubit, and with negligible interference, so we use it to secure quantum key distribution. And also, eventually, if we have two remote quantum computers, we can think about using photons to connect remote computers with quantum network. And also, as seen back to 2001, have already proved that with e-optics, single photons, and the detectors alone, it can allow for efficient quantum computation. And so, a list of the photons to be useful for the quantum applications, as I just mentioned. The shopping list is, in addition to the classical list, for example, the photon can be characterized by its frequency, polarization, orbital angular momentum. But for the quantum applications, we need some more list. So it needs to be single photons, and also it needs to have high indistinguishability. I will also briefly explain this too. So imagine we have 3 black boxes, each emitting a string of photons that is identical in all the classical degree freedoms, the frequency, polarization, as I just mentioned. So how to distinguish three boxes? So we have kind of feeling that the top line, the photons, they don't like each other. They repel. They keep a distance from each other. And there's the bottom line, the photons, they like to bunch each other like we did in coffee break. So to calculate this statistic behavior, we can use the second order correlation, which is a correlation between intensity of the field, and we can measure the D2 second order correlation using Hambro-Bloom interferometer, which is just to split the incoming photon field by a 50-50 beam splitter and detect by and we analyze the detection, the correlation of the two detectors. And we can see that for the three photon streams, they will have different behaviors. The middle line, which is the red, will give us red, which is most commonly is the laser, and the top line will give us anti-bunching near the zero time delay. There will be never the case that the two photons will fire simultaneously, and this is a very nice behavior of quantum of the light field, that we have to picture the field as particles that can either go this way or that way. And so being single photons is sufficient in many applications, like for example, quantum key distribution. But for quantum networks and quantum computing, we also need a sound wave for two single photons to talk to each other or to interact with each other. But photons have very weak interactions, which is an advantage in long distance quantum communication. But for quantum computing, is a disadvantage. But in 1987, people discovered a way for two photons to have some kind of interaction mechanism. This is when the two photons are truly identical to each other, quantum mechanically indistinguishable. And it was a superimposed 50-50 beam splitter. There will be the two photons will always exit the same output, photon both in C or photon both in D. And this is called because of the cancellation of these two terms, and can arise only when the two photons are truly identical. So by this, the two photons seem to have some, interaction that will form the basis of many applications in quantum, in photon logic, control logic gates, and also for quantum repeaters and so on. So as I have mentioned, the photons are the fast flying qubits, very small decoherence in free space. So it has already, for the quantum communications, we can already witness some real world applications. For example, this August in China, together, the project led by Japan, we have launched the first satellite for quantum science experiments. And also by the end of last year, we have now built a quantum network from Beijing to Shanghai, which is 2,000 kilometers, by using transport delay. And actually, 10 days after the launch of the satellite, we have managed to establish satellite to ground connections. You can see this is a picture you can take and directly use your cell phone. And these are the beacon lasers. The red one is from the ground station, and the green one is from the satellite. And there are 3 missions for the quantum science project, quantum satellite project. So the first one is to decoy state quantum key distribution from ground station from the satellite to the ground station, and then use the satellite as a relay to establish quantum key between Xianlong and the Nanshan, which is separated by more than 2,000 kilometers. And the second mission is to use a satellite, which is equipped with entangled to distribute entangled photons to Nanshan and Lianha, and also another one is from Lianha and Lijiang, which on the Earth is separated by more than 1,200 kilometers, and use the entangled photons to test Bell's inequality in the 1,000 kilometer scale. And the third mission is to do quantum state teleportation from ground early station to the satellite, which is also on 1,000 kilometer scale. And so far this experiment has been going very well. So please keep tuned, and I think the result will be announced very soon. So based on this progress, maybe we can envision the quantum internet in the future. So the talk I will mainly, so my talk today will mainly focus on a more challenging task, is quantum computing. We know that quantum communications will be sooner or later, more or less, have some applications by, for example, in China by banks, government, and the military. But for quantum computing, that the field has been there for quite a long time, and there's a lot of serious efforts. Also in Microsoft, Google, IBM, and also in 2015, also established a joint laboratory with Alibaba, which is the largest e-commerce company in China. So the question we want to ask is, when will quantum computers do science rather than be science? Can we build actual machines that we can put on desktop and which is practically useful? So for photons, I will just briefly summarize history on the theoretical side. So before 2001, we have guessed that quantum computation using photons will be impossible, and Neil, Laughlin, and Melbourne who want to prove that the impossibility, turn out to came up with a proposal, Chaoyang proposal, that linear optical quantum computing is in principle possible. And through the development of class state and fusion gates and so on by these guys, the resource required to achieve one near deterministic signal has been greatly reduced over the years, from about 10 to 5 to about 10 to 2. So if we plot the resource needed for a signal gate as a function of the year, we can see an exponential decrease of the resource from the theoretical side. And as experimentalists, we have been very greedily, expect if the trend continues in the year along. Today, we need only less than 1 photon for signal gate. That didn't happen. So, but on the other side, the experiments has been going much slower than what the theoretical have been expecting. So the green curve, the green data point is the growth of the photons, angular photons, that we can control in the lab as a function of the year. So last year, in December, we have reached entangled 10 photons using long-term photons. And the technique we use, which is most commonly used previously to create multiphoton qubits, multiphoton entanglement, is through parametric down conversion, in where we use ultraviolet UV laser pumps to pump nonlinear crystal, and there's a tiny probability, about 10 to minus 9, 10 to minus 10, that one UV photon will split into two infrared photons, and it will be collected from these 2 points, or using in-like source, we can collect two-photon entanglement, and we can further engineer the two-photon entanglement by using quantum interference of the polarizing beam split into multiphoton entanglement. But so far we can only control 10 photons in the lab, and this is far out of reach of building a universal quantum computer, which have two very demanding overhead. One is that we need to fault tolerantly control a qubit, which so far I think is only demonstrated in very few physical systems like superconducting qubits. And also for linear quantum computing, for universal quantum computers, for example, to factorize a 300-digit number in Shor's algorithm, we need a huge number of qubits, and this is much larger than what we can control today. So, as has been talked also during this conference, in many talks covered. So now we should first build some non-universal quantum computers, which probably maybe does not need fault tolerance, and the requirement of millions of qubits can be reduced to tens of physical qubits. And one such task for photons is boson-sampling. Boson-sampling is a classical analog of waterboard. If you drop classical walls through this network, you can expect a Gaussian distribution in the output. But if we replace the classical particles by quantum mechanically indistinguishable bosons, for example, photons, and we send photons through this linear network, we will expect very different output distribution. And it turns out that to calculate or predict the output using classical computers, the problem is related to calculating the permanence of the matrix, and it needs more than exponential steps. So the calculation of the permanence is related to sharp hard problem in the computation complexity language, and it's just a very rough estimation that with about 20 to 30 photons and with efficient counter rate, the computational complexity of to calculate the relating permanence will reach very high complexity that can challenge our best classical computers today. And for photons, this will reach to the point that we have been talking about quantum supremacy. And we have heard a lot of news in last year, especially, for example, Google's plan. And so on. So let's now look at for photons. Where are we? There have been proof of principle demonstrations of boson-sampling using down-converted single photons, and but for arbitrary single photon input configurations, it has been demonstrated only up to 3 photons, and for 4 photons, it's using 2-photon input state for the down conversion. And so the challenge that limiting us, well, basically the boson-sampling consists of the 3 components. One is single photon source, the second one is linear operated circuit, and the single photon detection. and these three parts in many cases can be decoupled. So what are limiting us is the three components, and probably the most significant challenge is in single photon source. And the problem we associate with the down conversion over the years, why is the multiphoton entanglement, the number of photons we can entangle over the years increase very slowly, linearly, not exponentially, is because that the process of creating one entangled photon pairs or one gigaphoton is probabilistic. So, for example, for two photons, the probability is p, and for six photon entanglement of all probability is p to 3. And the p is typically need to keep it small in order to suppress the high order events. So this increase very slowly. So one possible solution of the probabilistic nature of down conversion is through a thing called scattershot boson sampling, in which case we use n square PDC source and send it through n dimension matrix. And the strategy is use this combination, so the probability of getting n-fold coincidence have much larger probability of the combinations, and using this combination to beat the exponential loss of the photons. But there's some problem with the signal to noise ratio, and also the very dependent perfect. So a more direct and natural way is, can we create some single photon source that each time it will emit one and only one photon only. And there are also a few different ways to create this deterministic single photon source. One way is to convert the probabilistic SPDC into deterministic by using multiplexing of many SPDC sources into one single output. But also, the field has, this tank has been developed for, I think, more than 15 years, but still, the performance is fairly limited. So that's why we now switch to single photon emitters that naturally can give us one and only one photon each time. And there are many candidates as single photon emitters. For example, using natural atoms, type ions, and neutral atoms. But if you visit the labs, the overhead of experiment is usually very high in order to force to cool the atoms, and also using very sophisticated electronics to control the optical pulses. And there are also solid state artificial atoms, for example, diamond color centers and the quantum. For many color centers, the problem is that the quantum efficiency of the emitter is not high, or the zero photon line is only a very small fraction of the emitted spectrum. For example, for NV centers, the zero photon line consists of only 3% of the overall emission, and only the zero photon line can be made, indistinguishable photons. For quantum dot, advantage is that the quantum efficiency is near unity, about 98%. So, but a typical problem of the solid state systems is usually more noisy than the trapped atoms, trapped ions. So the idea is, can we combine the very high quality of the quantum control in natural atoms and with the solid state platform single photon emitters? So I will first explain how we prepare quantum dot samples. So the indium arsenide quantum dot sample is cloned self-assembly using molecule beam epitaxy. So on top of gallium arsenide, below 1.6 molar layer of indium arsenide. And because of the lattice constant mismatch, the indium arsenide will form small nanometer scale jobs in the gallium arsenide, which the height is only about for 4 nanometers, and it is only confined and leads to discrete levels, as you can see here. So the quantum dot field is also actually quite an old field. People have demonstrated single photon emission by photon anti-bunching since 2000, since the year of 2000 by Chaoyang Lu and Yamamoto in Stanford. But all these experiments, the single photon emitted from, prepared from the quantum dot previous experiment cannot actually used for multiphoton experiments. The reason is that to be useful for the multiphoton experiments, the single photon source has to fulfill a very demanding checklist with five criteria, and these five lists has to be fulfilled simultaneously, not separately. So the first one is to have high quantum efficiency. The energy needs to convert into emitted photons. And this is predominantly determined by the material. The second one is deterministic generation. So using a pulse station, so the source should emit a push button single photon source. And the third one is the photon stream should have pure, meaning it have only single photon contribution, but not two photon or three photon contributions. So the fourth one is it should have high indistinguishability, as I have explained the fundamental interference. The two photon experience can only happen if the two photons should be identical to each other. And the fifth one is should have high system efficiency. The photon radiated should be packed into a single mode with high efficiency. So the first problem we need to solve is high indistinguishability, because previously the photon emitted is only up to 70% visibility for very short time scale, and this is not because the experiment was performed, not carefully, but it's very fundamental limit due to the use of the non-coherent or non-resonant behavior of the quantum dot. So typically, the quantum dot is previously is excited by love bandgap laser or on the picture, whereas the excitation laser have higher energy than emitted photons. This is convenient, experimentally. We can just press the background laser using virtually. But also it have two problems. One is that the carriers are created in the love band, and this forces me to relax into the lowest texture before the photon emits. So there's an uncontrolled tension from this incoherent application. And so the two photons, they cannot actually arrive simultaneously at time, because there's a time computer. And for higher pulsar, so when the time is compatible, especially to the lifetime of the single photon, the fundamental experience will be fundamentally limited. And also in this technique, typically you need to use very high power application, and this creates electrical field fluctuations, and will cause spectral wandering of the emitted photon. And also, so the photons will be able, they can distinguish them by energy. So to solve this problem, we develop a technique which is pulsed resonant fluorescence. So we excite the quantum dot purely resonantly using this S-show excitation laser. And this is a typical spectrum we can see on a spectrometer. The very broad background is on the laser leakage. This is log plot. And the very sharp pitch is on the emission. We use polarizers to extinguish the laser background because the final emission is circularly polarized, and we excite with near polarized, and we can extinguish the laser background using polarizing cross polarization. So if we change the laser field, the laser intensity, we can see a very nice Bobby oscillation. And we can also demonstrate it using continuous wave excitation using CW laser, and we increase the CW laser power. We can see evolution from a single Lorentzian spectral line to multiphoton. So these two are equivalent behaviors of a two-level system Bobby oscillation. In the multiphoton, when the Lobby frequency gets larger and is larger than the spontaneous emission rate of the two-level system, the Lobby oscillation will modulate the spontaneous emission. The two side peaks will see, and this is the typical Lobby oscillation. So we can conveniently fix our laser power at this point, which is about a few nanowatts, and this will give us a deterministic generation single photon in a push button manner. So for each pulse we send in, the quantum dot will generate one and only one photon only. And although you can see from this raw data point, because this raw data point is already very clean and without any smoothing. So this does give us a very optimistic signal that as a solid state artificial can, if we do it properly, can be as clean as separate ions and separate atoms and matched atoms. So the main motivation is that with this new excitation method, can we have higher photon quality? So we use two-photon interference, visibility of emitted photon, and for the first time we demonstrated that the previous limit of about 70% can now be overcome, and we can demonstrate visibility up to 97%. And later, 1 year later, we can demonstrate that the indistinguishability can be 99.5%. So now we return to the checklist, and in principle, using pulse and resonance excitation, the photon quality can be greatly improved with near unity indistinguishability. So one remaining problem is the collection efficiency of the single photon from the quantum dot. So as we have seen that inside the quantum dot, the photons is already generated deterministically, but because the matrix of the quantum dot is gallium arsenide, which have very high reflex index, 0.5. So without any cavity structure, the total internal reflection angle is only about 17 degrees. So without any cavity structure, it's only 17 degree solid angle photon can actually escape from the material, and that will have that corresponds to extraction efficiency of only 1 to 2%. So although the photons are generated with high efficiency, they cannot actually collect with high efficiency. So next we want to solve this problem. And on this figure, you can see typical experimental, well, the best previous experimental data using non-closed, non-resonant excitation and with cavity structure. As you can see that the power near saturation to the laser power inside the quantum near saturation is on the order of a few hundred microwatts, which is much larger than Rabi oscillation as we can see. And also another big problem is when the laser power gets larger, G2 also increase from about 20% to more than 50%. So there's also using non-including extension, there's a trade-off between the efficiency and also photon purity and inclusivity. So we need to find a way that we can compatibly have high extraction and meanwhile, maintain a very high photon quality. So early last year, we now have been able to put all the 5 techniques all together in one quantum, in one experiment. So the quantum device we replicated is shown here. So the quantum is a very tiny crystal, as you can see from here, and here's the cavity in pillars, which consists of 5 to 15 pairs to 25 pairs of DDR pillars, which act as 2 mirrors. And we attach the quantum into the 2.5 micron diameter micropillar. And this forms a very typical single atom inside the box problem. We can numerically simulate the light field inside the pillar and also output photon. And because of this also forms a region of weak coupling between the atom and the light field. So we can see a decrease of so when the quantum and the cavity is resonant, the lifetime of the two-level system is decreased from 600 picoseconds to less than 100 picoseconds. And we can have a Purcell effect of about 6. Then we can now repeat using post-resonant excitation and the repeated Rabi oscillation again. So in this paper, we have reported a single photon count of 3.7 million single photon counts per second, which is what we eventually saw on single photon packs with 6% efficiency. So the actual photons out of a single mode fiber is about 27 billion per second. And recently we can first optimize the optical elements, and now eventually on a silicon detector we can see 9 million single photons per second, which is so the replication rate is about 76 megahertz. So this is the brightest and single photon source in all physical systems. So we can use the HBT interferometer to test the purity of single photons. You can see that at a 0 time delay, there's less than 1% contribution of two-photon events. So the purity is better than 99%. And also for fundamental experiments with the time separation of 2 nanoseconds, we can see that the two photons, when the two photons are prepared with orthogonal polarization, they will have this coincident counts because we, on purpose, we make the two photons distinguishable. And when the two photons, when the polarization is parallel, you can see this is expressed, significantly expressed, and we can extract a photon indistinguishability of 98.5%. So all these features, the photon purity, intensity, the efficiency is very nicely and fully combined in one quantity. And in this point, we can see that the time separation of the two photons is only for 2 nanoseconds. And in a later experiment, we can further increase the time separation from nanosecond to tenths of microsecond. And we can see that for a string of more than 1,000 photons, they can still, maintain photon indistinguishability over 92%. So from this curve, you can see that first there's the time scale of the decrease of photon indistinguishability from 96% to 92%, which occurs at a time scale of 1 microsecond. So this is the time scale of the decoherence environment that a quantum experience in the micropillar, which is mainly induced by the electric field fluctuations which happens in 1 microsecond. So for two photons that emitted with time separation much smaller than microsecond, the two photons is sort of like a decoherence free space. It will experience a thin fluctuation, so the indistinguishability is higher. And the second thing we can see is that even in the very long time scale, the photon is at 92% plateau. So this indicates that the decoherence or the electric field fluctuation is small comparatively to the intrinsic language of the photon. So we can see from these curves that for up to 3 photons, we can have photon quality over 95%. And in principle, up to 1,000 photons, the quality is probably no longer a problem. So it means we are quite ready to perform multiphoton experiments now with quantum. So one way to do that is if we can have many independent quantum. But the self-assembling quantum, each quantum is different. They have different wavelengths and bandwidth. So one way is to engineer many independent quantum, make them to be, identical, using, for example, vacuum tuning. So a more efficient and the more economical way is the part 2. If we can have just find one perfect quantum, everything very nice design, and we can then actively demodify many spatial. So imagine we have incoming single photon pulse beam, separated by about 10 nanoseconds pulse beam. You can then using a cocktail or electrical optical modulator to separate, to actively demodify it into different spatial modes. Like for this one, we can prepare 5, independent single photon source. Experimentally, we can, for focus cells that have very high transmission rate, nearly 99%, the response time is the only method. So in the actual experiment, we can group the 20 photons to and using the cells to demoralize, for example, single photon pulse chain in 5 independent single photon sources. And to perform boson-sampling is another important limiting factor, which is the main mode in the filament. So previously, as you can see, that people mainly use waveguide-based photonic chips to perform the multi-mode in the filament with dimension of about 6. But the most significant challenge is that the efficiency of this linear optical network is quite low, from about 10% to 6%. 6% is this byte-based network. So this efficiency will also scale exponentially and will increase the overall efficiency. So we want to have a new design of ultra low loss multiphoton in the filament. And we first think about what is most essential for a high efficiency boson sampling. And that is, we need the most important feature is that the network should be stable, should have high transmission rate, and implement a random unitary matrix. And these are very essential for high performance boson sampling. And what is desirable, on top of these essential checklists, we also want them to be very small, tunable, and universal. So currently, the previous design is limited by the efficiency, the transmission rate. So now we put forward two new designs in the filament, which you can see on these photos. The left one is the 9 times 9 in the filament. The left one, 16 times 6. These are photographs of the land. So actually, our new design is very straightforward. So we start from individual fused silicon plates, and each are very finely polished and coated with polarizing beam splitting ratios. And because we coat, we can achieve very high transmission rate, over 99.99, usually 4 nines. And then we can combine these together using intermolecular force, or to fuse them together. And these coatings, we can coat differently, different layers, and also it's dependent on the incoming photon polarization. So we have some degree of tunability. And so this interferometer is equivalent to this triangular shape interferometer. And also because when we fabricate this interferometer, the phase is uncontrolled and usually it has a random. It's random. And the one typical interferometer we test, it indeed gives us a very random matrix. So the feature of this interferometer is that it has a very high transmission rate, also have a very high spatial mode overlap. So the overall picture of the experiment looks like this: with one quantum dot in a micropillar, emitted high performance single photon source, demultiplied into different spatial mode, and sent through this ultra low loss photonic circuit and detected by silicon detectors. In this experiment, we have combined both high performance single photon source and the lowest loss optical circuits, but the detection is only 30% efficiency with silicon detectors. So now we can achieve 3, 4, and 5 photon boson sampling. The 3 photon boson sampling is about more than 5 order magnitude faster than all the previous experiments, taking advantage of our highest performance single photon source and also the ultra low loss optical circuit. And also, previous experiments using Down conversion only demonstrate up to 3 photon boson sampling, but now we can also do 4 and 5, and also very high quantum rate. For 5 photons, we can have 4/3 quantum rate. And interestingly, we can also, compare the performance of very preliminary boson sampling machine, very early classical computers, ENIAC and TRADIC. And we can see that for up to 3, 4, and 5 photon sampling, our photon sampling machine can beat the performance of ENIAC and TRADIC if these two are used to calculate the permanence. So for people who are very optimistic about photonic quantum computing, we have shown that it's a very ugly quantum computing candidate in the photon. Now we can do very simple tasks. Also, our near-term with that is the fastest platform. But currently, we can do some very good. So, this has to my last slide. I would like to show you some photos from our lab. The typical is the tricep, the filters, and with that, I would like to thank you. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Chaoyang? Todd?
Of course, single photon sources have a lot of other applications, as you discussed. But what do you see looking forward in the longer term for the prospects of integrating large number of components together? I mean, right now there's competition between different technologies for achieving quantum computation. Do you think that linear optics is in the running with that?
Yes, I have aware that, for example, Jeremy Oberon and Kelly Rudolph, they have now set up a company in Silicon Valley, and their approach is to try to build a universal quantum computer on the platform of silicon photonics. So the challenge of the integrated photon source, well, I mean, for every approach, we have to solve the three problems. One is to have a near deterministic and have a perfect single photon source. And for integrated, one way is to use four-wave mixing and or using Doppler conversion and using multiplexing. But the problem is also associated with the loss of the multiplexing and also the rate of the detection. Another challenge is for single photon detection with near unity efficiency integrate in the optical circuit. So last time I talked to Henry, and what Henry told me is that was this the investors, they shouldn't anything in 5 years. So I think that's a very challenging route. So what we focus here is we want to demonstrate about teleportation photon sampling.
Okay.
So we don't care if integrated or it's larger. We just first want to build some machine. It's probably on the scale of the table, but it has high performance compared to. And in the longer future, we can also look into the integrated
Okay, we're having a bit of trouble with the video and the audio. We could try more questions if there are. You can ask first. Okay. Krista is going to make some announcements, but before she does that, let's thank our speaker again.